Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. I will tell you I'm very excited about this session. This session is a little bit different than the other sessions in the executive track. This is the AI Machine Learning Roundtable, and there's really no presentation to speak of. This is an opportunity for everybody in the room to ask questions, find out what other companies are doing, the kinds of things that you're either implementing or challenges that you're having or questions that you have. And this is really a session about you, our customers and partners. So to facilitate the session, we're very fortunate to have a professional moderator here. I'd like to introduce Jacob Brown. Jacob is the vice president of the Mozaic group, and he's led literally hundreds of different qualitative and quantitative research studies on a whole variety of different initiatives, extensively in technology, including both domestic and international research for leading technology companies, including Adobe, HP, Intel, Microsoft, Sybase, Symantec. I notice InterSystems is not in here, so we have to add that to the list. So you have done quite a bit of work, research work, with us. Jacob brings a strong strategic perspective to his projects, along with an in-depth understanding of the challenges facing companies competing in the enterprise technology space. That's absolutely true. And Jacob lives out in the Bay Area, so we very much appreciate you coming out for this. So please welcome Jacob Brown.
So as Joe said, there's really no presentation here, or at least not much. Mostly this is meant to be kind of an active discussion. As opposed to my giving you information, you actually are going to give me information, or give each other information. Because, hang on, there we are. The idea is to talk about the reality of how people deploy, are using, or thinking about AI machine learning. Or the way I look at it, what's real and what's totally and completely hype. Because if I look at the publications, the trade press, it apparently we should all be doing all these different things. And you kind of wonder about it, if they call it if Gartner calls it the hype cycle, you got to wonder really how real some of this stuff is. And this is a little difficult to kind of read, I'm sure, from the back. But so what I did is I pulled out what they call the priority matrix. And these are the 25 top AI and machine learning topics. The top row are what they call transformative. The next row are very important. The first column, the next 2 to 5 years, 5 years and beyond. So these are the things that everybody thinks that they should already be doing. So I talked to a lot of companies and talked to individuals about what they're doing. And the one thing that I get back is, I don't know what I'm doing, you know? I think I should be doing this. I know I should be doing this. Everybody tells me I should be doing this, but I'm not quite sure how to do this. I know I should be applying AI and machine learning somehow, but there's no really directions. So does that make sense to anybody? Yeah, so I see a lot of heads nodding. So what do you think about that when I say that I should be doing this, but what do I do?
Think about like coming up with different use cases that other, well, we come from a health system, so how are other health systems using AI or machine learning?
So how are other people doing it? That's why I was so grateful for that last presentation. That was the most succinct and concrete example of using machine learning I've really seen. And what was interesting about it to me, especially that first example, the machine learning took 4 minutes. You know, they cranked numbers for 4 minutes to get their clusters, and everything else was actually operational. You know, figuring out what to do with it. So I'm wondering, to get started, when I look at all these things, what are we actually doing? Who's actually doing some machine learning? Ah, there we go. I get like 5 or 6 hands. Okay, as opposed to what we would believe, which is everybody's supposed to be doing it. So what are you doing in machine learning?
much as image recognition.
Image recognition, okay. And to kind of get an example of somebody else. Yeah, what are you doing?
We're using AI for deduplication of data in MDM systems.
Okay, deduplication of data. Anybody got other, yeah?
We're using it to evaluate supply chain.
For supply chain management and evaluate efficiencies in supply chain. So the big question is, how come when I ask who's doing it, I get 7 hands? But if I read the trade press, it tells me that everybody in this room is currently doing machine learning or AI. Why aren't we all doing this? What's the challenge that we face?
Talent.
What? Talent. Okay, skill systems. Skills. So I don't have skills. What else? What keeps me from being a machine learning example that I could get why you weren't kind of doing that last presentation? Anybody here?
Time and other products.
Time and other projects. But still, do we know right now how machine learning or AI would move our company ahead? How would you want to use it? Anybody have an example? How would you want to use it? Yeah, no, you already talked. Okay, how about you? No, you. Yeah. Oh, two. All right.
I have one. So we work with nonprofits that raise money, and we're going to use AI to integrate with our CRM to help them predict who to contact and solicit by what channel.
Okay, so that's a great example. So that's a great example of using it to kind of optimize your sales or marketing efforts. But my question is, why aren't we all doing this already? What stands in the way of making this work? Anybody have an example of that, or why? What's keeping them in the way? No. This whole little thing only works if you guys participate. I'm sorry. Yeah. What? There's no clear ROI. Okay. So I need an ROI to get going this, so I can get budget approval. So that stands in the way. What else stands in the way? What were you going to say?
You need a large amount of data.
Oh, you need a large amount of data. So as they talked about earlier, if I don't have enough data, I can't really do this stuff. But that's an interesting thing. So what industry are you in? Healthcare. Well, it's interesting that, because for most people, getting a large amount of data is not the challenge. For most people, Joe has this great phrase, the pantry is full, but what am I going to cook for dinner tonight? You know, I've got so much data, but what am I going to do with it? So I guess my question is, what other challenges do we have to actually doing this? Do people know what they'd want to do if they could? Who has a project that they wish their company would fund, but isn't going to, but it so far hasn't? Or that they think they should be doing? No, you've already talked. He's very eager, very nice. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
I'm developing language models within InterSystems, and it would be, well, the challenges or the things that hinder me from doing it is, the skills and also the data. So a large amount of data, we don't gather the data ourselves, our customers are gathering them, so that's a problem for me.
That's interesting. So the skill set within the organization, and do I have enough data? It's interesting that you should say the data part, because like I said, I would not have expected that to be a barrier when mostly people are just complaining about too much data. Okay? So, now I get it. Okay. So the dark blue are InterSystems people, and the non-dark blue are non-InterSystems people. All right, now I know who to choose on. All right, so what do you wish your organization was doing with machine learning or AI?
In a way, we probably have been for years. We're an ERP system, and like from a purchasing standpoint, once we have up to 3 months worth of data, we can start predicting what they need to be ordering. But I think we need to start taking it to different levels, and there's other parts of the system that we need to be applying, that type of thing to.
So you've got a lot of data, and you've been doing some of this
For a long time.
For a long time,
Right.
Before they started calling it machine learning and AI. Okay.
Yeah, true.
All right.
Very true.
So now, Why? But you should be taking it to more levels. What stops you from taking it to more levels?
You know, again, everything they've been saying, other projects that are, you know, because, you know, we're in the process of, we've been converting over to InterSystems from an older ERP system for quite some time, which we're just about there. We've been trying to introduce things like deep sea into the process. So again, time is the biggest challenge.
So same as always, I've got a long list of projects I want to do, but only so much money and only so much time, okay? But let's imagine I give you some money and I give you some time and I give you a skill set, okay? From your perspective, what do you think AI and machine learning will be able to do to move? How is AI and machine learning going to increase the value at your organization? What do you see it as doing? What's the benefit? Yeah.
Well, we're in the post-acute healthcare space in nursing homes, so one thing we'd like to do would be to be able to flag an incoming resident, kind of risk rate them for a risk of readmission to a hospital, say, unnecessary readmission.
Okay, so you guys probably couldn't hear in the back. So a post-acute hospital, they want to be able to flag admissions quickly to evaluate for maybe prevent readmissions. Okay, so that's a very clear example of what you want to do. What's the value to the organization? What is it? What are you giving it?
Well, I mean, that goes to a much bigger discussion about how the healthcare sector works, but essentially you save money throughout the system if you can keep them out of the hospital, in a nursing home or in a home health, in their own home.
Okay, so I can save money if I can keep them in their own home or in a nursing home. Okay, so the value I'm providing is I'm minimizing admissions and I'm saving money because it turns out if they keep coming back, I keep losing money, okay? What's another example of what I want to be able to do with the benefit of machine learning and AI? My question is, what is it going to move me forward that I'm not doing already? Why is there so much hype that I'm not going to do it already? What about you?
I'll tag on to what he's saying. With Northwell Health, we are calculating what we call the LACE score to predict if somebody's going to go back to the hospital. But I think that we could probably take it to a next step and maybe look for, if we really were truly doing artificial intelligence, we would be looking at the whole data set maybe to discover things that we're not seeing that would cause somebody to be I mean, there's challenges. I think that maybe moving to Iris where things are faster. You know, we have enough data. We actually have too much data. We don't have the processing speed to process all that data.
All right.
You know, there's those challenges, but I think the opportunities are there.
So it's interesting. So you've got more than enough data. This guy's in the healthcare, but he doesn't have enough data. So it turns out it's not ubiquitous. Some of us have a lot, some of us don't have enough. But what's interesting is nobody's raising these things. Nobody's saying, I want to do generative adversarial networks, okay? You know, I challenge 5 people in the room to even know what a generative adversarial network is. Nobody's saying I need to do, federated machine learning. You know, so far the problem is not, oh yeah, I got to do some of these fancy things. The problem is I either don't have enough data, I don't have the skill sets, or it hasn't risen up high enough on my priorities to get it approved. So I wonder, okay, so the last guy, Gerd, he talked about that at his place, the CIO, or the CEO actually, even more important, is totally on board and gets it. And he or she is driving this use of machine learning in order to optimize sales and optimize supply chain and things like that. So the question is, who needs to get behind this to raise the priority? Is it the architects? Is it the CIOs, CTO guys? Is it the CEOs? Who needs to be kind of converted to make this thing happen? Now I'm going to point at you. Yeah.
Usually in our industry, in healthcare, especially in HIE, the decision makers are not the implementing partner. So I think it would go back to depends on how it is state would be the decision maker. If it is a privately funded HIE, then the decision maker would be whoever helping funding the HIE.
So all those sales calls you're telling me to the CTO maybe need to move over to the business side because they're the guys with the money?
Correct.
All right. Who agrees with that? Does this get driven by the business side or the technology side? Business side. All right, good. So how about at your place? What do you think is in the way between you and generative adversarial networks? I, by the way, happen to know what that means because I'm doing this. But other than that, it was the first time. Yeah.
One, I have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a blocker right there. It's really seeing the advantages and the vision beyond what the first use case is. Like, where's it going to go next? Because we can do a lot of this stuff we want traditionally, right? For maybe cheaper because we're not making that big investment.
Well, I don't know about you. I don't know if everybody heard that. What he said, if I may paraphrase you, and you please correct me if I get this wrong. Well, that one of the problems is the vision for where this is all going, because I can already do a lot of this stuff using traditional technologies. And so what's going to get me to make that move? And to me, that is the most real world explanation that I've ever heard. I'm already kind of doing this. You know, it's like this guy over here who's been doing it before anybody coined the term machine learning, but he's been doing basically this stuff. So how are we going to get it? Because everybody in this room wants to be doing some of this stuff. So what has to change for your organization to start getting behind you? Any thoughts on that? All right, so yeah, please.
Clear understanding of what the possibilities are.
So I know you didn't hear that in the back. He said, a clear understanding of what the possibilities are. Okay, and I see some heads nodding. So that raises the classic word vision. Okay, so I have to have a vision. And I wonder, who has to have this vision in order for this to get moving forward? Where does that vision have to come from? Audrey, can you?
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm with the creative agency.
Okay, so you don't count. All right. Where does vision come from that's going to move this thing forward? Is it going to come from the vendor? Is it going to come from InterSystems? No. This guy says no. I don't know if I agree with him. I don't know. So where's the vision going to come from? Because if you want to make this happen, apparently, somebody's going to have some vision here. Where's the vision going to come from?
In my case, the vision came from me.
And what's your role? Okay, so you manage the DevOps team, and you had a vision. Okay, so then how did you get that moving forward so that your organization kind of bought into your vision?
I just went to management, explained what I saw and what I figured we'd be able to get out of it. They bought right into it right away. It's funded and it's in process.
Wow. More power to you, man. That was pretty good.
The management there is actually very visionary. They want to change. They want to find ways of improving. They want to do this. And they're very, very interested and they listen very carefully to anybody's ideas.
So interesting. So you, as a technical person, came to management with a vision, okay, of what could happen if they were to implement, okay? How else is that going to happen in other organizations? This lady in the back there? I wonder about yours. Yeah. It's great when I point at people, there's this momentary pause, and then they say, please, no, not me. It's like being in the front row at a comedy thing, you know? Don't pick me. Sorry.
Well, I'm not a client, unfortunately, I'm a vendor. But what I have seen is the vision sometimes can come from the vendor side. But as we talk, right, it should go, at least in my experience, it's easier when you go to the line of business and to connect your vision with the pain point that they have, right, and how to help them to solve that specific pain point and how to convert your vision in some specific business outcomes for them.
Okay, so maybe a vendor who understands your business can come to the line of business and help them understand what they can do. But is that what vendors do? Or do vendors come and try to sell you something? Yeah, they come to, they try to sell you something. Right, I got this little shiny widget, you know, can you buy 10,000 of them? That's what the vendor wants to do. But what this lady and this gentleman suggest is that perhaps vendors have a different job. So if I'm a vendor now, InterSystems, let's just say, let's just pick them out of the air, and they want to bring a vision to your organization, who do they talk to? So who should they be talking to in an organization? Okay, now you can do it, okay.
Speaking to the people who it matters most to, the people executing tasks, I think.
The people who it matters most to. And is that like a line of business person?
For us, it would be nurses and physicians.
So in a hospital setting, this is an interesting issue. A hospital setting, it's nurses and physicians, or in my experience also what might be a chief medical officer or something like that. And so it's interesting that that really supports the research I've done, which is that if I'm trying to sell something to a hospital, I don't go to the CTO. I go to the chief medical officer and the chief nursing officer and do it there because they're the people who actually live with it, okay? And they have the budget. So, yeah, please.
Because the CMO might be a little bit too high, they might not be involved in the day-to-day machinations of the department. So you might want to go a step down, or maybe 2 steps down, for people that are actually experiencing the difficulties that require this kind of solution.
So this gentleman said that the CMO may be too high. Maybe I need to go to a rank 1 or 2 ranks down because they're more involved in the day-to-day hell of getting things done. Okay? Yeah?
I'll just add to that as well. You know your customer, right? You know who you need to talk to that has the loudest voice that goes up, right? And that's who you talk to, right? Because they're going to talk to the next guy up.
Yeah, so who has the loudest voice, but also to your point, who really is aware of what the pain point is and cares about the pain point is what you're saying. I've got to, if my CMO doesn't really, if he doesn't get bugged about this, he or she is the wrong person to talk to because they don't care. So I need somebody who cares and somebody with a voice. But now this gentleman that I talked to before, who's the head of DevOps, a vendor didn't come to you with a vision. You developed this vision on your own. You went to a vendor to help out. At what point did you go to the vendor? When you were thinking it through? Okay. So how did you come up with a vision? How did you know that this was something that was going to be useful in your organization?
One of the problems we have is we don't have real good monitoring of our environment. So if something can go wrong, it causes major problems. We can have outages and so on. So we need some way of automating that monitoring. And doing machine learning on that, I was able to see very easily how putting machine learning on that, we would have a really superb monitoring system. And the value is
So if you didn't hear, they're having trouble monitoring issues in their environment. This is the healthcare environment. And that has, I assume, a lot of costs when you miss things. Yes, okay? And so if they could fix that, but I guess my question is, so you must have been aware of a pain point there to bring this up. So this is a pain point that you share as well as maybe the clinical side shares.
This is not just fixing the problem, this is being proactive about the problem. This is preventing problems from happening, doing some of the stuff we want to do is predictive analysis. Put that kind of information in there. We have so many different moving parts. We want to be able to tell if something's wrong in one part, we can look at other parts
So this is an example, it seems to me, where what happens is we both have a clinical pain point as well as a technology pain point, an organizational pain point. All right. So now it turns out I have to go to somebody who has a pain point, okay, and be able to solve that pain point for them. But what the thing apparently, I'm sorry, somebody, no. But apparently the thing that I can't do is I can't go over and try to sell them edge analytics. Okay. I can't sell them, you know, deep neural networking and learning. I have to sell them a solution for their project or their problem. So I need to find somebody who has a pain point, somebody who has a voice, okay? Now, this lady right behind the guy who just talked, what about machine learning in you? Yeah. She looks behind her, looks in front of her. Please, not me. If you don't mind, you can always pass. It's okay. I apologize for pointing at people. So what about, how is this going to change in your organization? How is the machine learning and AI going to kind of rise in yours?
So fast that it will be possible to skip some, to reduce the team that implements the project.
So what has prevented this from already happening? Is it a technology problem? Is it these things don't do it? What's the obstacle? Why haven't you done it?
They're going to approach it.
They're going to approach. They're going to ask.
Yeah.
Okay. So why haven't they asked already? Why hasn't the organization gotten behind this to move this forward?
Well, there is certain entry barrier. You see, there are some, for example, team of 20 people are doing this manually. Yeah? And to implement innovation, it would be faster, but it will take some time, investment, and then they can do it more in a more optimal way. But it will be there is some entry barrier. But
right.
At some point, they'll do this.
So I'm going to kind of shorten that. Change is hard. Okay? Nobody likes change. Change is hard. So we have now a couple of barriers. I got to talk to the right people. I've got to have a vision for what it's going to do. I've got to deal with organizationally institutional resistance to change. And all these things mean I've got to kind of pump up the value that I can help you see the value that I'm going to bring to it. Okay? But again, nobody here has said that the barrier is it won't work, or that this is not a technology barrier so far. It's an education barrier, and when you say, and Dario, when you say education, whose education?
Well, since I also am a vendor and I have that point of view, it's education. Generally, people have a perspective of AI that is not true. So to demystify AI is the first barrier that we have been encountered.
So I'm Danilo?
Yes.
So what Danilo said was that most people have a wrong perception of what AI and machine learning does. And that the first thing you got to do is correct that and build some education and understanding within the organization about what it is this even does. And you had your hand up. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, you said you work at an HIE?
Yeah, I work at an HIE, and one problem that we have is deterministic versus probabilistic, meaning like we can't use a natural language processing algorithm to take in data that maybe will be right 99.999% of the time, but because it's probabilistic, we can't rely on that because we're dealing with personal healthcare information. So I think there are like certain, or at least in our case, there are like technical limitations and legal limitations towards implementing artificial intelligence, such as like a recurrent neural network that does natural language processing or something like that.
So that's an example. So there are sometimes some barriers or limitations on a technical level or a technological level. But mostly it seems that the issue is, how do I get my organization, how do I develop a vision, how do I get my organization behind this, and how do I implement change? How do I get people to do this and spend some money? Sorry, Hunter, you were saying something earlier.
Oh, I was just going to say, as far as kind of a barrier to implementation in my particular case, it's our higher ups, our C-suite level guys still have this perception that machine learning is still like in its infancy, especially with healthcare where you've got such a complex data set. It's not just numbers, but you're looking at patient notes, and to piggyback on that, the language processing, all that would have to go in to extract information out of that type of data set. I think there's a skepticism as to, is it worth our time and money right now, or should we wait to see 5 years down the road what this looks like?
Should we wait until it's been proven? It's more universally adopted. Sorry.
Yeah, along those lines, there have been a few very high-profile failures, which is another barrier.
Right, and the barrier is it's like this is like the in security. This is always what happens in security. There's a breach and it scares everybody to death. So there's been some failures of AI, and that makes everybody a little bit nervous. So let me ask you. Now we're going back to InterSystems as a vendor, okay? Or it could be any vendor who's coming in this area. So we've identified that the issue isn't all the fancy names. The issue is figuring out what it's actually going to do for me, finding someone to talk to, communicating a vision, mobilizing the organization, and identifying or changing priorities. Okay? Does that seem reasonable, what I just said? See, mostly nods, okay? So what do you think is the vendor's role or opportunity in any of that? You know, because all of those things sound pretty kind of what we might call within the beltway, you know, kind of internal.
I think the vendor should be able to supply some like good examples of how machine learning or artificial intelligence has been used at other places and see different ways that can be made specific for the organization.
So what he just said is, I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
I'm Phil.
Phil. So what Phil just said is he thinks that vendors should be coming and providing specific examples of how machine learning and AI has been used and how those examples could be applied to your organization. Okay? I see you nodding. That makes sense? Are they doing that now?
We asked the vendor about our case, and we told about our problem. And after they discovered this case, they proposed for us some examples of using machine learning in our case. And that was the point when we decided to choose this way to implement in our product.
Okay, good. So there's a great example. Anybody else want to talk about what vendors could or should be doing, or examples of a vendor who's done a good job? Doesn't have to be InterSystems. Anybody have an example of a vendor who's come to you and helped you create and move that vision forward?
In our supply chain example, a vendor approached us to engage in an innovation project where both sides had some skin in the game to get it done. And once the case was proven, it became more ubiquitous. The vendor could take that and commoditize it for other institutions, and we got the upside of being able to continue using it on an ongoing basis without having to pay upfront license fees.
Great example. So the vendor came and put some skin in the game to get a project rolling, to do a proof of concept or something like that. All right, good. Is that typical? Are they doing that? Or I'm wondering also, somebody was talking about CEOs not believing it. It was kind of shorthand for old guys not getting it. And I'm wondering whether, so one thing is I got to get some skin in the game for the vendor, but the other thing is, how do I educate the old men and women, the C-suite, which in all honesty is mostly old guys, not old women, unfortunately, but mostly old guys. How do I educate them to get into this?
There should be a new role between CEO and CIO, like CTTO, responsible for digital automation, and then he should connect business with IT, and AIML is one.
So within your organizations, we should have some kind of a digital transformation czar who would be responsible for this sort of stuff. Any other things? I mean, yeah.
Don't start off with a list like what you have on the board.
Right. I totally agree with you. This is the worst thing I've ever seen. You know, because I got to tell you, so for a recent project around AI and machine learning, I talked to a gazillion DevOps guys and CTOs and CIOs, and none of them talked about this list. None of them. You know, they all talked about processes within their organizations that needed to be improved. You know, either to save money, get a competitive advantage, forecast and things like that. So let me just, oh, fantastic, we're almost done, okay? Because, this is a little hard because the problem is that last time we did this earlier this year at Gartner, okay? And it was a round table like this, but actually it was a round table. And so it made for a lot more kind of interactive environment. This is kind of a challenge, okay? Because people don't want to talk. It's all kind of the one way. But I guess my question is, kind of to wrap this up, when you think of your vendors who come to you, and there are lots of vendors, hardware, software vendors, where are they falling short in talking to you about new things? Where could they be doing a better job? Where are they not doing? Let me rephrase that. How are they not doing their job when they come to you now? Yeah. I'm sorry. Can we give her a mic? I can't hear.
I think a lot of the game in getting to the C-suite or getting people to believe is seeing is believing, perception is reality until you see something different. So the skeptics are going to believe what they believe about AI until you show them differently. Not just talk about it, but actually show them. So like they were saying with the vendors, they came in, they showed them, and then they realized there was something there that was viable to look at, and then you show return on investment, and maybe you can get buy-in.
Okay, so one thing the vendors need to do is to kind of really show some examples to the senior people to get them on board, to get them believing. Yeah, please.
Specific to their organization.
Specific to their organization.
So we only care about what we care about in our organization.
Okay, so it doesn't do any good if I give you these kind of generalizations or if they're about banking, if I'm a logistics person. So they've got to take the time to really know your business and be able to give you an example about what's happening in your business. Paris, what about you? How are vendors not really doing their job when they come to you with new stuff?
Well, we are vendors.
Well then never. And they're doing a bang-up job. They're just the best. They're the best. Don't sit in the front row next time. Yeah. Please.
I think you hit two words that are the key: pain and the education. I mean, the zillions of aspirin were sold last year. Nobody wanted aspirin. They want to get rid of an ache.
Right.
And you've got to just get in there and find out what the pain is and not try to sell them something shiny. I mean, that's the way we approach our business.
Right.
And they might not even know they're buying AI or whatever, but you're selling a solution to one of the things and educating them on it.
So the summary, this is what I take in that last kind of summary, that what I've got to do as a vendor is help you, because you guys already have some vision about this and have an interest in this. I have to help you educate the organization, demonstrate the value of what we're doing, play serious with you, put some skin in the game to do a proof of concept or something so I can demonstrate and help you move that up stream to the senior people. What I cannot do or should not do is sell you a shiny little sparkly ball, which is what people like to do, which is to sell a widget. But what I have to do, because this is product development, I have to help you develop something within your organization. Anything else that comes to mind about how your vendors can help you move down the food chain in this? And, you know, the volunteer or pick. It's like, you know, 6 of them, half a dozen the other. All right, last, I promise it's the last one. All right. What else can vendors do to help you guys? Please tell me you're not a vendor, okay? Up, I'm pointing at you. Okay, I'm pointing at you instead. All right.
It goes back, so you keep saying vendor, for me it's vendor partner. Like, again, what's the relationship? How do we build up that trust? Right, and again, it comes back to the things you've already said. What are the pain points? You know, where am I from a business perspective? Am I an early adopter? Am I a late follower? Where am I in that continuum? There's a number of dimensions they can look at to make sure that they're qualifying the opportunity the appropriate way. But it starts with understanding what I'm trying to solve for. And I'm not trying to solve, like I don't have a goal today, this year, to buy your product.
Right. I don't have a goal to buy your product. That's really beautifully put. I have a goal to eliminate some redundancies in my supply chain. I have a goal to remove some costs from my purchasing process. I have a goal to better predict when my truck's going to break down. Okay? I do not have a goal to buy your product. All right. Any last thoughts before we close? I really appreciate this. It's been very useful. I hope it's been helpful to you guys to learn. I think my big summary is everybody feels like they're behind on this. But now we've had a room of 75 people who are interested in, and this is what they're thinking about, and everybody's still at the ground floor, okay? And that's the reality no matter what Gartner says. Almost everyone is still at the ground floor. So you're not behind the curve. We're all just starting up the curve. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate your help.